First and foremost, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes it very clear throughout the Quran that at every moment of your life, when you have a decision to make, you are listening to two promises. إِنَّ اللَّهَ وَعَدَكُمْ وَعْدَ الْحَقِّ وَوَعَدْتُكُمْ فَأَخْلَفْتُكُمْ. You have the promise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and you have the promise of shaitan. As Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah says, literally every decision you make, you're going to have the promise of Allah and His reward and the promise of shaitan and his consequence. And you have to hear those two voices at the same time and actively get used to making your nafs listen to the promise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that applies to the big and the small, to the public and the private, to the major and the minor. Every single decision that you make that involves righteousness and wickedness is not neutral. Allah is making you a promise of a reward and a rank. And shaitan is making a promise of a consequence and a humiliation. Now there's something very important to point out here. As Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah says, there's the promise of ajr and there's the promise of maqam. The promise of a reward and the promise of a rank. When it comes to shaitan, there's a promise of a consequence and a promise of humiliation. It refers to something that is inside of us, that when we are called to do something for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's not always a numbers game.